Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Kyler Anderson. You're watching the Neureal Weekly Community Podcast, community live stream. My name is Kyler, like I said, and I am the community manager for the Neureal project. I'm joined today by my adopted sister, Kayla. I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Kayla Manser. I kind of help Neureal out with project management and graphic design and all that kind of stuff. But I'm totally new to the crypto space. Like, I don't know anything about it. And Kyler has tried desperately to explain Neureal to me. I don't know how many times, and I just don't get it.
And answering any of your questions and kind of showing you guys some cool stuff. And near the end, I have a very exciting announcement about shirts and sweatshirts and hoodies and cups and all kinds of. Yeah, I see your face, Preston. All right, we're also joined by Preston today. Preston, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? I think this week is finally the week you're going to be able to do more than just offer a couple of comments.
Yeah, I'm Preston. I'm the assistant community manager. So I just help out on Telegram chats, and then I also do a lot of outreach on social media, stuff like that, just trying to get a hold of the right people. Right now, I've just kind of been focused mainly on that. So, yeah.
So speaking of which, is this gone out to the Neureal community on Facebook yet? And if not, why not?
Yes, it did.
Great. Guys, if you're watching right now, I don't know how many of you are out there just yet, but if you are watching right now, please go ahead and take the opportunity, hit the like button, and then why don't you try and share this to a group that you think this might be relevant to? As always, do an actual proper introduction to it, but yeah, why not drop this into a group that you think might be interested in decentralized artificial intelligence and asking questions about it. So business, let's go ahead and go through just everything we went through last time in case you missed it. We are, let's go, right. Thank you. Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. I'm still not done being sick, but I'm a lot closer. So as far as business this week goes, we essentially, again, we've delayed the pre-sale. We're not going to be giving dates. We're not giving dates for a number of reasons, but specifically, we just feel that you're going to be better served to just follow us closely, and that we're going to be able to get the word out about when stuff's happening. And specifically, there's things that are happening now that are not. We don't get to dictate the time, and so we don't want to continuously have to delay and keep delaying. So instead, we're just not going to announce a date. Just stick with us in the group. We're going to be very open and honest about every step of the way forward. That's most of it for news. We might be joined by Jen at the end of the segment. She might have a couple more things that she wants to put on. Second thing, I guess, for news, let me find an appropriate way to share this. Well, I guess I'll wait till a little bit later. I'm going to show you guys the graphics that we've got going on for the shirts. They look freaking awesome. So that shirt sale is going to start essentially 20 minutes after the live stream's done. We're just getting the graphics for the back side of the shirt finalized. It's going to look bomb. And you guys are going to have choices between like shirts, t-shirts, hoodies, male and female sizes on all those. And then also choice between, because Jen was really particular to the pullover type hoodie. I'm not a huge fan of that. But so we're going to have those and the zippered hoodies, which I am a big fan of. And mugs. Yeah. So we want to thank a couple of community members who, mostly the guys on the design team, and Richard for putting together those graphics. They look phenomenal. I'll show them to you later once we've actually got some people interacting. Looking at you, chat. Say something if you're here. Say hi. Let's see. Preston, why don't you go ahead and kick it off? Do you have any questions that you've noticed people asking as you've been talking to them about the Neureal project?
Mainly just when our sale is, when are we going public? When can they buy in? But I guess a lot of the questions pop up from like how we compare to Augur and other predictive AIs out there. I mean, people, and I don't know, I'm fairly new to the predictive AI space, but I really haven't seen a whole lot of talk about something like Neureal. It's the first of its kind. It's the only thing out there. So people don't really have the proper perspective for it. They see, little predictive AI bots and stuff like that, but they don't really have a concept for what Neureal is. They don't see the big picture of how it actually is so all encompassing, and it creates a network for other AIs. So it's just, I don't know, it's kind of hard to get that across to people how big it actually is.
No, I completely agree with you. It was awesome. I got invited to be at the CoinFest 2018 panel and speak on artificial intelligence. And unfortunately, the only other panelist was in the hospital, so it ended up being the Neureal show for a little while. It was pretty good. I really enjoyed it.
That was a great show, by the way. You did a
Oh
great job.
yeah, I thought I was pretty terrible. I feel sick as a dog, but
No,
um,
it was good. I could see people starting to understand. The more questions they asked, they finally started to get it by the end there. And people in the chats, I was watching the chat. There were guys that were just like, "Oh my gosh, my mind is blown. When can I buy into this? This is so cool." But yeah, it was a good job. We just need to get on more of those so we can keep explaining to people like, "Hey, we're here. It's happening."
I completely agree. And the other thing that I'd really like to start doing that I've been thinking about doing for a little while now, and I think that I finally got the support in the form of you and Kayla, that I need to actually free up some of my time. I think I've been thinking about doing this for a little while, but I think I'm going to start doing a really, really short, like limit it to exactly 10 minutes, like morning broadcast where, how in the marketing channel and in the development channel, we've always got these really good articles going back and forth where we're discussing different things as they apply to Neureal, and we're looking at the ethics, and trying to make sure that we're not only in line but looking at different ways to interact, and to help people better understand Neureal. I think it might be interesting if I just did a little brief rundown every day of these news stories and how they apply to Neureal and how they apply to the community, and kind of what different members of the team have said about each one of them. Do you guys?
I mean, especially with
I think
everything
that
going on in the space right now, like news articles coming out. Ah, you're freaking me out.
Cardioid. Sorry. It has to be like right next to you.
Yeah, no, it's just with all the stuff like coming out about crypto and changing and AI and blockchain. It's like every time we turn around, there's a new article out there that it just makes sense to talk about how it's going to affect Neureal.
It's true, and the Telegram, as much as I love Telegram, it's not really the best place for those kind of discussions, it seems, because the way that the whole flow of the conversation gets broken up as different other side conversations happen within that conversation, and then you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling forever. And so I wonder if maybe I should take like a summation of some of the stuff that we say, and then just bring that forward. And if you guys out there in the community, I don't know if anybody's watching, but if you'd be interested in seeing that, please let me know, because I'd prefer not to do it with no one watching, but I suspect I'm just going to do it anyway.
Yeah, he'll do it anyway.
I think that's a great idea, and I think that's perfect because, like you said, we have such great discussions in our Telegram chat, and it's hard to get that information out there, and it's kind of hard to hear the nuance of a conversation, just reading a text, and yeah, every article that comes out, it seems like Neureal will affect it, or new technology will affect Neureal in some way, and that'd be good to do daily or maybe 2 or 3 times a week, something like that.
Cool. No, I think it needs to be daily, and I've got time. I mean, I
Sure.
I got time. I'll make time. My whole job is to communicate with you guys, and the more communication we do, the better. So I'll have to decide and talk with Will and figure out if I'm going to do that on this channel or if we're going to do that on a side channel. But I'll get that figured out, and I'll let you guys know. Sounds like that's gonna happen. Let's see. Let me check this link. Let's see how many people are actually watching right now. If enough people are watching, I will go over these t-shirt logos real quick. Not there. Whole job is to communicate with you guys. And more. Only 2 people watching, and I suspect I'm one of the 2. So this is being recorded for posterity, is what this is. All right, guys. So here's what we're gonna do. Kayla, like we said, she's not super familiar with crypto. She's not super familiar with. Actually, she's even less familiar with AI, which I want to say is probably the boat that most people find themselves in. She's actually probably more familiar with crypto than just like, hey, you know, what would your grandma know? But
that's not saying a whole lot. It's changing so fast. There's so much information out there.
yeah, no, he's just saying that's not really saying a lot because there's so much changing out there in the world, and specifically in crypto, and it's changing so often that it really is kind of like it's a full-time job to keep up with it. So with that in mind, where should we start?
Pressure's on. Well, I mean, I've learned a lot because trying to learn about Neureal specifically. I think the thing for me is I'm still, like, I finally figured out the difference between blockchain and crypto. Like, I finally realized that difference, which took a while. But, I mean, I think I'm still a little bit confused about how the different, I think decentralization is, I think, what confuses me because I don't really understand what it is versus, like, with AI especially and how it's different in a decentralized blockchain environment than it is existing separately.
So I guess a good example would be Watson. You've seen commercials for IBMs Watson, right? Oh, you've definitely seen commercials for IBM's Watson, I promise. It may have just looked like a regular IBM commercial, but when they were talking about like doctors being enhanced with the power of AI, and specifically they've targeted doctors really heavily. Well, that's a really interesting story because that is a very, 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 very close community. In order to use Watson, you have to sign on to very particular rules. You have to essentially kowtow to a lot of what IBM wants you to do in not just your practices with Watson, but specifically they get to dictate all of the rules in a lot of different fields if you want to use Watson. And it creates a closed off garden where IBM can pick and choose who they want to elevate. And essentially, like, if you think about the kind of tools that an AI puts at the hands of a doctor, if your doctor's not AI enhanced, it becomes very non-competitive, right? So when you think about putting that kind of control in the hands of one company and one board of directors, that's a really scary thing. Those types of situations have a tendency to magnify themselves. And specifically what I'd like to talk about now is like really scary. So I hope you guys all know about this already, and if not, I'm sorry.
Dun, dun, dun.
In China, there is a thing that they call Sesame Credit. And Sesame Credit is like a credit score, but it scores your loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party. It's achieved through machine learning, the way that the score is calculated, but it takes in such things as like who you are friends with and what their political views and leanings are, and how closely you associate with them, what kind of job you have, where you went to school, any sort of lateness on any kind of payment. That's all reported to the centralized system. And your score in that system dictates what kind of school your children can go to, what kind of school you can go to, what kind of transportation you can take, what kind of hospital you can go to, how you're treated once you get to that hospital, all of the above. That's not possible without machine learning. It's just flat out not. And it's another example of what happens when very small groups of people are the only ones who gain access to these types of incredibly powerful tools. And like I said, it has a tendency to magnify itself. I was just watching a talk by Sam Harris today. It was a TED Talk. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I'm going to probably share it in the Telegram later so that we can kind of discuss it, because it was a really, really interesting talk. Sam Harris was talking specifically about the arms race to do with AI, right? Because different countries are seeking to make weaponized AI. And the fact is when you think about, if you think about human value in this particular field as like how much thought and how much thought work we're able to achieve per year, when you talk about an artificial generalized intelligence, not what we're developing, not even what's in the horizon right now, but as he likes to point out, time is a non-factor here. As soon as an artificial generalized intelligence is turned on, let's say that it can do like very, very relative estimate would be like a couple thousand years worth, maybe 30 years worth of work, 3 decades worth of work in about a week, right? It doesn't sound even too ridiculous by today's standards, right? You could easily conceive of that, right? But what you don't see is that happens week after week after week after week with no sleep ever, which means that the very first, and not only that, but AI as it's defined is simply code that can write code that suits and is able to adapt that code to do what it's trying to do, right? So that means that there's a lot of types of AI. Like what we're developing is very limited scope AI, and it's specifically a competition platform for predictive algorithms. But essentially what you're talking about is like hundreds of years of human advancement very quickly. And so the first to the punch, 6 months lag in developing this, you might as well have, you lost the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so as soon as one of these countries hears that like one lab in one particular place has been working on one of these projects and it's nearing completion or nearing success, they're literally going to do anything they can to either sabotage, steal, or you know what I mean? This is the Manhattan Project, only a lot worse. So there's a lot of questions around this, but centralized, you can see how that's a problem if you centralize, right? So if everyone on Earth gains equal access to the most powerful tool that's currently available at the same time, and it's entirely driven by human interaction, which is what happens in a decentralized system. Each person has control of a tiny node of it, and it takes the collective action or inaction of all these people to turn it on, keep going, or turn it off.
Right.
Okay? And it also means that because there's no gatekeeper, there's no person standing in the way saying you can't build that on this system to anyone, it means that Neureal could be used for some bad things, but it means that everyone on Earth has access to the same powerful tool in order to help counteract those bad things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's a Pandora's box as far as AI goes. And I said this the other day, and I'm going to keep saying it forever. Like, AI's here. The box was opened about 20 years ago. It's just been building. And if you look at 20 years, it's not that long.
No. Yeah, no.
And so it really is. I mean, like, guys, I talk about this every day, but I don't think that a lot of people really get how very large of an impact AI is going to have in our time. We spend a lot of time dwelling on history. There has not been anything in our history, and I'm going to steal from Sam Harris here again because this was very impactful, and I just watched this earlier today. He said, can you imagine what we would do if we got a message from an alien species saying our mothership will be at Earth in 50 years? How much action do you think there would be in that time period from now? So we're talking about having artificial generalized intelligence within the next 50 years. And nobody seems to really be worried or care. And it's a very scary thing, and I think it's because most people, they write it off as science fiction and they don't realize that we're here. It's all just a matter of building, and there's no reason to. The only thing that's going to stop us from developing artificial generalized intelligence is full-out thermonuclear war or collapse of civilization as a whole. And because of that, I feel like the only way forward is to make the decentralized open option, figure out ways to make it the very best. And that's what I love about Neureal, right? Is that we're not depending on the genius of one programmer. We're not depending on the genius of one programming team in order to build us our super AI. We're literally harnessing the power of every competitive team on Earth. Every kid sitting in class where, by the way, there's a lot of decentralized systems coming out soon that are going to teach people how to do machine learning full-on decentralized and for free, where the people who are teaching them earn this particular, it's an interesting project that I'm potentially going to be advising on. But it's the very first thing they're focusing on because the guy who's building it, he's taught AI at boy, it's one of the Ivy Leagues, but I don't want to say the wrong one because I know that they get really touchy about that. So he's taught machine learning at one of the Ivy Leagues, and he's told me very specifically he knows that he can teach Python through everything you need to know about machine learning to anyone, like a house mother who's ready to stop being with the kids all the time and find her own work and that kind of stuff. And this is the type of thing where if you do it, you do it well, you do it right. There's such a shortage in the field that you're you're pretty set. You're pretty golden. It's like I said, I've said this before. Like, people have asked why there's not more AI researchers and more people who can build AI right now. I hope the sound's been okay. I really have no idea, but I guess I'll find out later.
Sounds good to me.
Well, you're in the
I
you're
know.
not even in the same mic, and I haven't had it nearly as close to my face as I probably should. Let me turn up the sound on this so that you guys can get some better audio, I hope.
I don't see anything in the chat.
Well, I don't see anything in the chat. If you're out there, let us know how the sound sounds, because I'd be very disappointed if it was garbage. But no, I think it's just us watching. So it's oh well.
Yeah. Well, it's a cool discussion. Like,
yeah, it is.
So I will admit that the term machine learning still confuses me too.
Okay, so all machine learning it's.
You say all that it is, and then you.
No, it's very like I want to make sure that the coders out there don't attack me, because I don't actually like make.
They get kind of touchy on certain subjects if you don't explain it precisely.
So here, hold this. I'm gonna come up with the Google.
He's gonna Google it. Oh, Preston, you'll appreciate this. I was talking with my brother this week about Neureal, and as soon as we started talking about it, he's like, "It sounds like Asimov's Foundation series." And said I need to read it. So
yeah, you do.
Read that.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, absolutely you do. That's like one of the pillars of sci-fi, like in the last 100 years.
One of the pillars of sci-fi in the last 100 years.
Yeah, I know, and I haven't read it. I read Ender's Game. Does that count?
That's a good start. That's a good one.
Okay, so machine learning is an application of artificial intelligence that provides systems the ability to automatically learn and improve from experience without being explicitly programmed to do so. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It is. There's many different machine learning languages. It's a feature of that allows the code to learn from stuff.
Got it. So it's one of those things where I was like, okay, does machine learning exist without AI? No, it doesn't. It's part of AI. I get it now. Okay.
Yeah, it's. I would say it's like the base order function of AI, really.
Okay. Yeah. Because that's what enables it to learn from and yeah, you know what I'm saying.
You know, I'm wondering if I turn it up to the loud noise. Let me do something that I should never do and play with the noise gate. I think that didn't work at all. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. We will just have to hug the mic like we're supposed to with a cardioid. Okay, so moving on. Next bit. So, has that actually helped you at all, or?
Yeah, no, that has helped me, because I mean, it's just decentralized. I understand putting AI in a decentralized system, which is blockchain, basically, is like a type of.
Well, blockchain is a decentralized ledger, and it's one of the key foundations of what we're doing. But remember that like the algorithms themselves aren't on the blockchain. We're using the blockchain to organize the competition for these. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're using that centralized ledger to organize the competition, and then that's also how the rewards for the winners are paid out.
Okay. So then, where does the AI for Neureal exist?
It exists on localized systems. Like, for instance, if I was going to run the default prediction strategy, that's a 1080 Ti right there. I could load up the default predictive strategy, or I could develop my own code, or I'm sure that other people will develop default predictive strategies. Just like right now, to be a miner, you don't have to write code for mining, right? There are people who've released these generalized mining codes that generally they write in there that it actually pardon, it actually pays them out a very small percentage of, like a very small percentage of what you earn mining for the privilege of using their code, right? So essentially it would run right there.
I gotcha. So it's just like, if you were the one asking the question, that you're the one running the algorithm?
No. So the default predictive strategy is just going to be like a very generalized machine learning. Well, this is where Jordan's going to kick my butt, because it's not just any of this. This is a very trimmed down, simple explanation of all this, is that It's a generalized algorithm that can predict anything with a live data stream.
Right.
Okay, it's just going to be fuzzier and not as accurate all the time as an algorithm that was written specifically to analyze that type of data by a person who's an expert in the field and can figure out exactly where the data he wants to pull from is. And remember, part of it being here is that it's not just the default, or it's not just the strategy that I use, it's not just the algorithm that I use that I'm competing with, it's also data sources. The person who's asking the question is going to provide any data sources that they are the only ones who are going to have good access to. Okay, but other data sources, that's up to the predictor to go out and buy other data sources and figure out what fits in where the best, and then use that in order to better predict, in hopes of winning the prize. And then that's if they believe. But it's just like now. I mean, with a miner, they're doing basically the same thing, except for that they're just guessing random numbers, trying to find the random number that fits the exact random number, which will unlock the current hash. I mean, that's essentially what they're doing. It's imagine hard cracking a passcode where it fills in every possible number that it could be. That's really, it's a simplified version, but that's what cryptocurrency mining is right now, right? And so it just randomly tries to fill in as much as it can. And that's why there's randomness in who gets paid out, right? Now, people pool together, and there can be pools of predictors just like this too, where they all work on maybe sectionalized pieces of the problem so that you split out where the computation is going and allow faster computation on each different thing. There's all kinds of different strategies that could be tried. There's even large-scale decentralized applications that allow people to rent computer time from other people to run specific applications. Stuff like Golem. This is a prime example of what somebody might rent, or they buy Golem coin, which allows them to run specific applications on other people's computers in a decentralized manner. They might choose to buy up a whole bunch of people's compute power in order to run predictive algorithms that they either design or the default predictive strategy, and then make money on doing that. Does that make sense?
I think so.
So here's another way of putting it. So Peter Diamandis, this is totally unconnected, everybody. Totally unconnected. This is just a good frame of reference, and I have to explain what the XPRIZE is. A lot of you out there may know. I'm sorry. I will say it anyway.
You told me about this.
I did, but I'm going to say it anyway. Peter Diamandis is a millionaire who essentially said, I can't imagine a future in which humanity is a single planetary species.
Right.
And what he had was about $8 million in order to make that happen. And $8 million in space bucks is obviously peanuts, less than peanuts. So what he did instead is he invested that into a fund so that the fund would continuously grow. And then he set out criteria to prove that you had solved one of the many, I think there's 50 some odd problems that we have, like 52, 57, something like that. All these different problems that we have to solve in order to get and colonize Mars. And if you can prove that you met those criteria, you win the prize. And so, anyhow, in doing so, you unlock the power of competition. And instead of paying $8 million to a single engineering firm to solve the problem one way, just the way that they can come up with their own team strategy. I mean, this is really what we talk about when we talk about diversity in a lot of places. This is a system which is driven by diversity, which gets better by diversity. It's the same way organisms evolve in the wild. I like it.
No, that makes sense. I mean, because it's the idea of I think competition's great. Like that's one of the things that I live by in my life, anyways. So no, that makes sense. And so I guess it's just the piecing together of how Neureal plays into all of that, like how
Neureal is the platform that this is all happening on. It's kind of the connective tissue of this whole thing, right? So it's where people can come and say, hey, I have this thing I want solved. Here's access to the data source. All of the actual communication of that information, and then the locking in of value, okay, and then the distribution of that value to the winner. That's what Neureal is. It's literally just the competition platform.
Oh, okay. It's starting to click now. Okay, so then where does the Neureal token come into play in all this?
So the Neureal token fills a couple of roles inside that community, but mostly when somebody wants something predicted, the way that they pay for the most accurate prediction is those Neureal tokens. So they buy those Neureal tokens and then they use them in order to set up predictive competitions. And then the tokens themselves, they get locked into a little smart contract and then they get paid out to the person that meets those criteria, just like for the XPRIZE, where you have to, if you meet the criteria would be the most accurate. But there's different ways you could set it. You might actually set it so that it's a range and you reward different bits of that to a range of predictors. This is kind of the confusing part, and this is why we have Powered by Neureal, is that like the way you ask your question has massive effects on the accuracy of the outcome that you get and the type of competition you have. Thus, this is why there's so many different tournament-style rules, right? Is that there's so many different ways that you can try and come at a competition, and the rules affect the outcomes. So because of that, people are going to be able to set up those competitions on their own, just like people can go in and program smart contracts on different things right now by themselves. Most people don't have the technical knowledge to do that, and that creates a big user gap. And so that's what Powered by Neureal does. Is that Powered by Neureal is going to be couple of data scientists and essentially data science technicians who receive questions from people, charge a small premium on top of it, but they buy the Neureal tokens from you. You can pay fiat to this company. They buy Neureal tokens. They set up your thing on the thing, and it's just going to cost you a little bit more than it would if you did it on your own. And then they're going to keep track of and figure out the best way to do it. And they're not even going to be the only one. That's just going to be the one that is set up and founded and run by the Neureal. Well, the Neureal Foundation doesn't run it, but it's part of the Neureal team that runs it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's one of the beautiful things about the project, actually, is it's going to create such a huge field of entrepreneurs. I mean, you can literally see the future with the power of Neureal. Like, how many things could you do with that, Kayla? Like, think of how many questions you have about the future and how that applies to business. And you can seriously, you could make so much money, it's ridiculous. If you have the right questions and you just know how to ask it, it's going to make such a huge impact. It's going to create entire economies that we've never seen before.
No, I completely agree with you. It's funny. I talked to Ethan. He's an advisor on the project. He's a good friend of mine, and we talk kind of all the time about a lot of different things, and we found that more and more those are the type of conversations that come up is like, hey, how about a t-shirt business where we run the different graphic artists and their social media profile through a predictive algorithm to figure out which ones of them are going to be most capable of self-promoting and people are actually going to like their work in different areas, and then we only sell the top of the top. Or, hey man, what about a stocking service for grocery stores that does predictive stocking of beverages based on
Whole Foods needs you.
Oh yes. Or actually, my dad right now actually owns a window shop, and I was just talking to him, trying to figure out a way that this is applicable to him. And honestly, you could put in the specific hardness of the windows, and then feed in live meteorological data, and then I guess like an estimation of which direction the average window is facing, and could essentially get a really, really interesting rough picture of how many window panes are going to break per quarter, per season, and under what conditions, and what specific sizes will they be, and how much you should order in advance.
Well, it's really incredible because like that's just one little section of our consumer society. Think of all the little things that you consume daily, your food and your water, all the resources that just one person takes, and the supply chain that has to go through. There's so much waste in every single little supply chain that could be almost eliminated just by seeing a glimmer of the future. And I mean,
I can tell you that as a theater professional, I would like to know what the audiences actually want to come see. Makes a big difference on audience.
Because you did a lot of live theater.
Yeah. That's where the bulk of my professional experience has been in live theater, and so like, it's interesting because like the theater world is very small, and so like being able to actually accurately predict what the top shows would be for the area, for the community, for the like there's so many different things that go into it, and shows, they cost a lot of money. So if you don't have good audience, it's just awful. So like it'd be interesting to see like how that would affect even Broadway, like what types of musicals need to be produced right now, because like the popular thing is kind of those pushing the boundary musicals right now, but then there's like Frozen is trying to come out, and I'm like, I don't know. Everyone kind of wants a Heathers right now. So yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see, because it's, the arts has always been, I don't know how to explain it. I think it definitely would have an impact on the arts in the sense of what to create for the population.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about it. It would also be interesting to. So we've been talking to companies who are going to do hiring, or who want to set up their hiring process in a way that it generates live data streams that are useful for determining how much a person will actually get along with a different work environment and how much they will actually make for the company. And it'd be very interesting to see, because that's live streaming, and so it's continuously affected, right? So it'd be very interesting to see if there were a way to quantify the way that actors were doing in rehearsals, and then figure out like specifically what tweaks would actually affect their performance positively. That might be a very there's a lot of weird live data streams that have to be figured out there, but with machine vision coming around the corner very shortly, that's actually something that I think could probably be done. Maybe the next 10 years or so. Watch an AI directed play.
Oh God, an AI directed play, that scares the crap out of me. This kind of reminds me, Ethan, if you're listening to this, of that play you sent me. Or no, it wasn't. It was Ethan. It was Will. Will sent me a play that was Shakespeare. It was like they plugged all the Shakespeare plays into AI, and it wrote a new one.
It was bad.
It was pretty funny. I will
send that to me, because I love literature. I love Shakespeare. I gotta read this.
Yeah. We'll dig it out and we'll send it to you. Actually, we'll drop it in the main Telegram group to discuss. That'll be good.
Oh heck yes! Oh, that's hilarious.
All right. So let me see if there's anybody else watching besides us. Poke. Nope. One of us left, in fact. Go ahead. Oh, you know what? Since nobody's going to watch, it doesn't matter when I bring the t-shirt graphics out. So why don't I bring out some t-shirt graphics? Go ahead, Fudd. Say what you're going to say.
Oh, I was just going to add in, like, I think that a lot of the problems that people are having right now is just picturing what a decentralized system in general looks like. Because it seems like almost everything in our society, from the time we're born to the time we die, is just centralized. I mean, think about it. Like you've got centralized families, you've got centralized healthcare, schooling, governments. Absolutely everything is just on a centralized model. And there's so little room for individuals to go do what they want to do that it's really just, I think it's hard for people to grasp the concept of the amount of power that an individual has in a decentralized system. And like when I first thought about AI, I started thinking about it heavily. Like the first thing that comes to my mind is like this Android, and that's, it's probably what comes to mind for everybody else. But even that is a fairly centralized image of AI. And it's just not really what Neureal is, or decentralized AI is specifically. And there's so much fear, uncertainty, and doubt right now in the media, or, from people in the industry, and rightly so, about centralized AI, that people just don't really have a concept for decentralized AI right now.
Like when you hear, actually, it's funny, Sam Harris actually agrees that decentralization is the only way to go. Again, one of the reasons that I really think that we need to talk to Sam Harris. So if you're out there and you're watching this video, poke Sam Harris for us. I know that Ed and Ethan have at least talked about interviewing him at some point. I think that we actually had him on the show at one point, but I don't want to speak too soon because I'm not positive. But he is a guy who the Neureal project would very much like to talk to. And I know that he is. But no, I decentralization is the only. Is the only way to go. Well, I should. T-shirts. We're calling it our initial shirt offering, and this is version 1, and it's just going to be this. But I quite like it personally. I think it looks very nice. But we're also going to be adding some of these other really cool graphics that have been made by Richard. Shout out to Richard. He's freaking phenomenal. Let's see here. Design channel. Oh, that's not going to be visible. Great. Oh, hey, wait. Here we go. I know how to do this. I can adult. Hey, it's actually going to be on the t-shirt now. I like this idea. Boom. Okay, cool. There's the back. Poor Fudd. He can't see it.
I can't see anything.
It looks really cool, man. Let me tell you.
I'm trying to find out a way that I can, like... Okay, there we go. I just hopped on YouTube. Yeah, that looks awesome.
I really dig that, actually.
Yeah, that's cool.
We're going to do another one that's got the roadmap on the back. I think it's going to be freaking sweet. If you want these t-shirts, the only way to find the link is to go into our Telegram group. I know, it's awful. Go into Telegram, seriously. But yeah, shirts are going to be $21. Just the NECP at during the pre-sale was also ending and actually doing the hard work on the t-shirts make. But do know that we make quite a bit more. This is going to be it. We almost took up a whole hour. I was hoping Jen would come. Do you have any more questions?
Explain it a lot. No, it's definitely making a lot more sense than it used to.
Sweet.
Also, happy National Beer Day, everyone. This is, yeah, it's National Beer Day. It is. I saw it on Facebook, therefore it must be true. No, but really,
the date was right.
Well, let me check real quick. National Beer Day 2018, April 7th. Happy National Beer Day, everyone. Especially you, 10 Barrel Brewing, up in Bend, Oregon. This really is quite good stuff. But yeah, happy National Beer Day, everyone. Have a good one. Crack a cold one for Neureal. Go get some t-shirts on the Telegram channel. And we shall see you soon. It's sad nobody was here. Oh, hey, Shadow, you're here. Cheers, buddy. Thanks for being here. Talk to you soon, everybody. Bye-bye.